Welcome to Idea part 16 of SQL video series. I am Ganesh. In our previous video, we have discussed about how to perform the drop command. And in this video, we will discuss about what are constraints and how we can implement it. In our previous video on drop command, we have dropped the employee table as well as the iShell database. I have created the iShell database again, and now I am creating the employee table in the format what we had before. Constraints are nothing but including a restricting mechanism to restrict other kinds of data, thereby permitting specific data to be stored on the fields. That is, constraints are for standardizing the data that can be stored in one or more fields. In other words, on all these fields of the employee table, we can add conditions to it and restrict what kind of data needs to be stored. So with these constraints, what we will eventually achieve is, we can prevent populating the incorrect or invalid data to be stored in the table, by which we can improve the quality of the data. Along with that, data accuracy will also get improved. That is, with the help of constraints, we can ensure the right data is stored in the right fields of the table. Let's see this in an example so that we will be able to convey more clear. I have already formed one insert statement. This record was already there before. I am inserting this record to the iShell database and in table employee. Let's retrieve the inserted record from that employee table. Select star from employee. Let's execute this and see. I'm executing it. Okay. Our inserted record is now retrieved. We know what this employee table is for, and we know the fields of the employee table, and we know what exactly the data it is supposed to be stored. So we know what data needs to be inserted. But this will not be the case for everyone. Moreover, an end user will not know what data type has been set for the fields. So there are chances that end user may enter different kinds of data. Let's say I'm going to insert one more record. For the employee Jerry, I'm specifying instead of M, I'm specifying it as male. I'm executing this. One row affected. So the record is inserted successfully. Whereas I'm maintaining the gender type field values as M or F. And even though we are inserting as male instead of M or F, the table is updated without any issues. Not only this, let's say as a typo error, you are writing as MAL instead of MALE, or you are giving as MALEE, something like that. So whatever you enter and execute, it will execute without any issues. So to avoid this situation and to handle this scenario, we can go for constraints. Lot of constraints are there, like not null, primary key, unique, default, foreign key, check. The scenario which we have seen so far, to allow only M or F in the gender type, we can achieve it using the check constraint. Let's see how to use that. Constraints can be created while creating a table, or we can add constraints even after the table is created. We can discuss on both the ways of creating the constraints, but let's first see how to create the constraints from the scratch, that is, while creating the table. To do that, I will first drop this table. Drop table employee. Executing it. We have dropped the table. If you remember, in our previous videos on create table, we have mentioned the syntax is the minimum syntax for creating a table and not the final one. So what does it mean? It means we can add constraints to the create table syntax. To add the check constraint required for this scenario, I can do it in this way. Gender type varchar of 10, check gender type equal to M, or gender type equal to F. Here we need to enclose the conditions within brackets. If you see, the error mark in red has gone now. Now let's select this and execute. Commands completed successfully. I'm running the select statement on an employee table. The structure is same as before. Nothing has changed. Let's try to insert this record. It is throwing an error. It says insert statement conflicted with the check constraint name. There is a constraint in gender type field which is preventing us to insert the record. Whereas if I change this from male to M and if we try to execute it, it is executing without any issues. Let's execute the select command. Okay. Now the result is retrieved, which means our insert command worked as expected. So this is the usage of check constraint. Next constraint is not null constraint. Again, I am dropping the table. Here on my name field, I don't want any blank or any null values to be inserted. And I want to have the name value as mandatory. That is, no records without a name field should be allowed. I am giving as not null here. Let's execute this query. Query executed successfully. I'm selecting the table. No records present. So in this query, instead of Tom, I'm just passing as null value. That is, I'm trying to insert without any values for name field. So my assumption is if I execute this query, this not null constraint should prevent inserting the record as name field is null. Let's execute this query. Okay. As we expected, we got an error. Clearly tells a name field cannot allow nulls. If I give instead of a null, if I pass Jerry as the value in the name field, then I expect this record should be inserted. Let's execute this query and see. Okay. The data inserted as expected. So this is regarding the not null constraint. If suppose I want not to allow any duplicates on a specific field, I can use unique constraint. Let's say I have a requirement like this. I want my name field should be unique. That is, it should not allow the same names to be entered for two different employees. So what I will do in that scenario is, let me drop this table again. So in the name field, maybe we can have like this. I don't want the name field to store null, as well as it should store only the unique values and there should not be any duplicates. So what I will do in that case is, along with this not null keyword, I will add another keyword, unique. Let's execute this query and see. I'm executing it. Table is now created. I'm selecting the employee table. No records are there. Now let's insert some records in the table. I'm inserting this record. It is inserted as expected. I'm going to insert a second record. So in this query, I'm changing this employee ID as E2 and executing it. The moment I execute it, it returns violation of unique key constraint error. Also mentioned as duplicate key value is Jerry. So it clearly tells we cannot insert this record. So unique key constraint is also giving us the expected results. Let's say we have a scenario that at any point of time in our employee table, only male employees will be added and there are no female employees going to join my organization. So in that scenario, it is very evident that the value of gender type will always be M for any records. So instead of specifying the value as M in gender type field for every record, we can set a default constraint so that we need not to specify the M value each time. So how I can achieve that is, in the create table query, against the gender type field, I can add something like this. Default M. We can specify whatever the values we want as default. In my case, it is M. Let's execute this query. Okay. Default constraint is now created. Let's select this table. No data is present, which is expected. In this query, I am removing the values of gender type field. Let's execute this. If you look at the error, it says column name or number of supplied values does not match table definition. This is because we have not specified the columns which we need to insert explicitly. To overcome this error, we need to specify the column names explicitly. This is required only when we are inserting the data for specific fields, not for all the fields. As we are going to insert the data for only 3 columns, we need to specify it explicitly. So name, ID, age. Let's execute this query. Okay. We haven't specified M, but it has automatically inserted for Jerry. This is all about default constraint. We are left with few other constraints like primary key, foreign key constraints. As the length of this video is exceeding, we will cover the remaining constraints in our next video. If you find this video useful, I suggest you to share this with your friends and colleagues. That's it for now. Thank you.